Listening is something that concerns us all in so many ways. But why is listening so difficult? The modern collective unrest implies we should always be somewhere else. We should always be a step ahead, always check our phones, always be up to date. When we are constantly overstimulated or get used to the phone demanding our attention, restlessness and inattention becomes a part of everyday life. What does this constant interference do to us as human beings? What are you hearing right now? Music offers something no other art form possesses. Music cannot be seen, the sound disappears as soon as they're played. Still, it holds an opportunity for us to not simply listen from one moment to another, but to experience a sense of totality. This can, however, only happen when we're active listeners. While hearing develops on a physical level, listening takes place in the psychological field because it's based on our individual experience of what is transmitted to our brain, our consciousness, our emotions, and our body. How does sound become music? Listening to what other people are saying is much harder than we think. How often have we not just been thinking of what to say when the other person stops the flow of the speech? To listen is to grasp the meaning of what the other person is saying, and to be curious and exploring in our response. You can only listen if you are willing to put yourself and your own ideas on hold. You have to be willing to let yourself be led, preferably to a place you didn't know existed, beyond your imaginations and limitations. You have to be curious, persistent, and willing to make mistakes. Listening to music can help us become more conscious of this. You may think that musicians would be great listeners. Well, too often the thinking comes in my way, and I cannot listen and think at the same time. If I want to start dancing with this piano, I must listen. I have to be curious and loving towards it, and accept it as it is, yet try to bring out its unique qualities. Every performance has to be fresh, even though I play the same piece over and over again. It has to be true, not just beautiful. And it all starts by listening beyond the sounds, listening behind the surface. When I was a young student, the Catalan conductor and professor of music, Jordi Mora, introduced me to the perspectives of phenomenology of music. He asked a simple yet so overwhelming question. What can you find in music that you also can find in yourself as a human being? That started a journey where I began to discover how musical phenomena as tempo, pitch, harmonies, and even dynamics works on us on a deep level. What creates tension and what creates distension? The enigmatic conductor Sæverud Celibidache, who was Jordi's teacher, said, "Sound is not music. Sound can become music." I think he's trying to tell us that the music happens in us when we involve ourselves as active listeners. That is an amazing thought. This led me to some investigation tools that I often share with my audience as listeners pilot. One of these tools can be illustrated by a sentence by the Greek philosopher Heraclit. You can never step into the same river twice. What does this really mean? The river is never the same, but we are never the same. What happened yesterday influences how we see the world today. When the sun appears after a rainy day, we appreciate it a lot more, don't we? But that means also that if a melody appears in the beginning and in the end of a musical piece, our experiences of this is so different. The first time the melody has a future, and in the end, the melody has a past. It is like it's looking back on what has been. But only if we have been present, and when it appeared in the beginning and follow the development towards the end, we are able to experience this phenomenon. If we want to come closer to what listening really means, we must start with ourselves. It is not just the music or the person we are listening to. What is happening in me when I listen? How can I fully involve myself with curiosity and not just bring in my own prejudices? How can I help her to clarify her thoughts and bring me further into her experiences? Words, as music, have no meaning if we don't let the words touch us, emotionally, intellectually, and even physically. Maybe even bring us to places we didn't know of, or thoughts we weren't aware of. If we listen to our children instead of teaching them, they will find their own connections to the world and to music on their own premises. When we walk in a forest and a child sees a tree, we tend to say, "Oh, this is a pine tree." This closes the conversation. If you instead start by asking the child, "What do you think this tree would say if it could speak?" Then they start their own inner journey, imagining, and the connection to the world, to nature, and to themselves increases. When the end keep what the beginning promised. I think this quote from Celibidache summarizes it all. Connecting moment with moment until we get to the whole, that is unification in music. When we deeply connect with what the person is trying to tell us, there is also unification. This is why listening is so important. When you can say, yes, now I really understand and feel what you mean. This is empathy.